It was meant to be just another Saturday morning, the kind where you immerse yourself in chores, tinker with the car, and let the day pass without much thought. That was how I planned it, at least. The old Mustang had been causing me pain for weeks, and I finally had the time to replace the brake pads. The garage smelled like engine oil, with a tinge of the cleanser I'd used earlier to wipe away the filth. The radio was on, low enough to melt into the background. The repetitive sound of the wrench-tightening bolts resonated in the area, a surprisingly relaxing backdrop to my work. Emma peeked her head in from time to time, a mug of coffee in her hand. Her perfume lingered each time, soft and floral, the kind of aroma you could close your eyes and visualize. She didn't stay long, just enough to check on me, flash me a short smile, and disappear again. She discussed her plans for the day, a trip to the country club with her friend Claire, followed by a little shopping. Regular, normal, nothing to raise an eyebrow at. I scarcely looked up as she murmured, nodding and muttering an acknowledgement before delving back into my activity. But then midday came along, and the air in the garage shifted. Emma walked in again, but this time she wasn't the same woman who had been darting in and out all morning. She donned a beige garment that hugged her shape in a way that made you look twice, combined with exquisite sandals that tapped softly against the garage floor. Her hair was fashioned, not in her normal quick ponytail or casual waves, but painstakingly, purposefully. She looked polished, too glossy for an afternoon with Claire. I paused, wrench in hand, and gazed at her. "You look nice," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Emma grinned, the corners of her lips curling just enough to suggest she'd noticed my reaction. She bent down, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Don't wait for me for dinner. We might stay out late." The words were simple, the tone casual, but something about them lingered. Maybe it was the way her perfume seemed thicker, or how her eyes didn't quite meet mine when she talked. Or maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was imagining things. I didn't concentrate on it, at least not then. I went back to tightening the last bolt on the brake caliper, focusing on the task at hand. By the time I poured the brake fluid and checked the pedal, Emma was gone. The house felt quieter without her. The low buzz of the radio in the distance now seemed almost too soft to fill the gap. I shrugged it off. Folks dress up sometimes. That's all it was, right? She and Claire probably had some nice lunch spot in mind, a place where the servers wore ties and the menu didn't have prices. Women adore that kind of thing. I convinced myself it wasn't worth a second thought. But as the hour wore on and the sun fell lower in the sky, I found myself thinking about that outfit, those sandals, and the way she said not to wait for her. Looking back, I think that was the first crack in the foundation. Small, virtually, undetectable, the kind you don't notice until it starts to spread. However, at the time, I didn't know any of that. I just figured it was another Saturday, and Emma was doing what Emma did, living her life, just like I was enjoying mine. If only it had stayed that easy. If only I hadn't started paying attention. Maybe then everything would have kept intact, and I wouldn't have found myself standing in the debris of what used to be our existence. But cracks have a way of growing, don't they? And sometimes, all it takes is one modest moment to start plucking at the thread that unravels everything. Sunday mornings at our house were usually peaceful. Emma loved to sleep late, and I used the time to catch up on odds and ends around the house. That day, I decided to tackle the accumulating mound of laundry that had been threatening to spill out of the basket. I didn't think much of it. Laundry was laundry. A mindless activity to keep me occupied until Emma woke up and we could eat breakfast. I went through the clothes like normal, t-shirts, jeans, Emma's blouses, until something caught my eye. It was minor at first, a texture that didn't belong among the familiar fabrics. I drew it out, holding it up to the light, a black silk tie. Smooth, pricey, and totally out of place in my environment. I frowned. It wasn't mine. I didn't even own a tie like this. I flipped it over in my hands, searching for a hint, a brand tag, initials, something that would explain how it ended up in my house. Nothing. It was pristine, the kind of tie you'd wear with a fitted suit. I tried to recall the last time somebody dressed like that had been here, yet the answer slipped me. We didn't hold extravagant dinner parties. Our circle was casual, jeans and sneakers types. The tie didn't belong. At first I told myself it was nothing. Maybe it had been left behind after some long-forgotten gathering, or maybe Emma borrowed it for a purpose I couldn't recall. It wasn't unusual for her to help friends arrange events or clean up after gatherings. But nonetheless, something about it nagged at me. I hung it on the edge of the laundry room cabinet and walked away. It didn't feel worth addressing her. Over, not yet. I wasn't the kind of guy to create a scene about something so insignificant. But the thought stayed. Every time I passed the laundry room, the tie was there. A faint reminder that I didn't have an answer. Later that evening, Emma came home. She seemed calm, shining even, like someone who had spent the day unwinding. We sat in the living room, her looking at her phone while I browsed aimlessly through TV channels. The tie was still on my mind, so I decided to ask, casually as, if it had only just occurred to me, "Hey, do you know where that tie came from? The one in the laundry?" Her gaze flicked toward the laundry room, and for a brief second, just a brief second, her brow creased. It was subtle, the kind of thing most folks wouldn't catch. Then she laughed, light and easy. "Oh, that's James's. We were helping him prepare for his anniversary party last week. I must have accidentally thrown it in my suitcase." The answer was smooth, practiced almost, but not incredible. James was a mutual buddy, the kind of guy who would wear a tie like that. It made sense. Yet something in her tone didn't sit well with me. I nodded, letting it go. "Makes sense," I said, keeping my voice level. Yet as she turned back to her phone, I couldn't help but note how swiftly the crease in her brow had erased, like a door closing, cutting out whatever had been there for that brief, fleeting moment. That night, as I lay in bed, I pondered about the tie and her answer, about the way her laugh had felt just a touch too light, her explanation, a bit too polished. It wasn't enough to accuse her of anything, yet it was enough to plant a seed. Looking back, it's strange how something so small can bear so much. Weight, a tie, merely a piece of fabric. But in that moment, it became something more, a question I couldn't shake, a mystery. Things seemed like they would grow if I didn't keep an eye on them. I urged myself to let it go, to trust her. But trust is a fragile thing. And once it's cracked, no matter how small the crack, you can't help but wonder when it'll shatter. Whatever she's caught up with, it's bigger than that. Bigger. The phrase settled in my chest like a weight. For the first time, I worried whether Emma was in over her head, if she was a victim of something she couldn't control. Or worse, if she was an active participant. One thing was certain, I couldn't stop now. I wanted to know the truth, no matter where it led. And this was just the beginning. The pieces of the jigsaw were starting to come together, but they didn't make a whole picture yet. The tie, the cufflinks, the faint male voice, even the mysterious snippets of discussion overheard at the restaurant. None of it screamed open betrayal, but it didn't sit right either. It was as though Emma had created a meticulously manicured facade. And no matter how polished it seemed, small holes were beginning to form. Victor's observation from her workplace stuck with me. "If this comes out, the company won't survive." Those words resonated in my head. What could be so harmful, so hazardous, that it had both Emma and her employer, Caleb, speaking in hushed tones behind closed doors? And why did Emma look so nervous when she thought no one was watching? It was time for more direct action. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet, but I needed to get closer, to see her in her natural setting, without her knowing. That's when Ethan came through with an idea. "I've got something for you." he said one night as we gathered in the garage. He took out a sleek velvet package and opened it. Inside was a pen, polished, exquisite, and completely unassuming. "It's not just a pen," he explained, flipping it over to expose a tiny, practically invisible camera inserted near the clip. "Give her this. Pretend it's a corporate present or something. She'll never know." It was brilliant. A simple, unobtrusive way to keep an eye on her office interactions. The next morning, I left it on the kitchen counter with a note. "Thought you'd enjoy this for work. Looks professional. A." When Emma saw it, she smiled, thanked me, and slid it into her bag without a second thought. That evening, when I studied the footage with Ethan and Noah, my gut clenched. The camera was positioned slightly askew, catching only part of her desk and the entryway. At first, the day's activities seemed normal, Emma working on her laptop, answering calls, occasionally checking her phone. But then Caleb stepped in. The energy in the room shifted. He didn't knock. He simply entered, closing the door behind him. Emma's body froze, her fingers pausing mid-type. Caleb leaned over her desk, his voice low but stern. The camera didn't catch every word.